Everybody in the trucking industry loves to talk about the glamorous side of trucking, the freedom, the money, the open road. But what a lot of people don't talk about are all those things that drivers have to learn the hard way. The overrated industry trends, the fake social media success, all those myths and everyday problems that slowly wear at you mentally and financially. So today, let's have some fun with it and talk about some brutally honest truths that nobody talks nearly enough about. Because the further you get into trucking, the more you realize that perception and reality are completely different. I'm Chris. This is my 7th year owning a trucking company and hosting the Haulin Assets podcast. When I first started, I thought I knew trucking. Turns out I had no idea how much I would learn. Welcome back to Haulin Assets 2.0, where I take you through the good and the bad, the ups and the downs of being an owner-operator.
Indeed. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast. This is episode number 196. Like Chris said up top, we're talking about the myths and the overrated aspects of trucking, hopefully in a fun and entertaining way. I don't want this episode to be a downer. I want it to be an eye-opener, okay? Now, Chris, my favorite thing that you said in your opener, the
What's
word
that?
Glamorous. not always the word I associate with trucking, but hey, why the heck not? Right?
When I think of Craig, I think glamorous. I mean, that's one of the first things that comes to my mind.
Have you seen these flowing locks? You should.
Man bun.
You know, I used to. For those who missed that era, you can go back on YouTube and see man bun Craig. It was really a sight to behold post-COVID, as I'm sure a lot of man buns were at that time. All right, Chris, we're going to get into myths about trucking, overrated aspects of trucking. But first, I'll remind everybody to go to HaulinAssetsLLC.com for full show notes. Go to motorcarrierhq.com for the tools, tips, and people you need to make the leap from employee driver to owner-operator. One of the most important things that you can do in that regard at Motor Carrier HQ, of course, is to purchase the hat and shirt that Chris is currently wearing. That you can see modeled so well on the YouTube channel. And the last thing I'll mention, HaulinAssetsAcademy.com for the self-directed version of learning how to navigate the owner-operator life. All right, Chris, we want to get into some myths, some overrated bits. And when you sent me this topic for today, I had a few things instantly come to mind. But I'm kind of curious where you want to take this. And knowing you, the way that I know you, and Chris, we're at this point intimately familiar. Okay, that was awkward. But it's going to be about money, right? Money is absolutely a really big part of it. It's kind of one of my pet peeves, and you don't see it just in the trucking industry, but you see it all across, social media platforms and in different aspects. And that's really, if we look at it in the trucking industry, it kind of starts off with, if you own a truck, you're going to make money. And there's a difference between making money and earning money. You can make a ton of money, but you can also lose a lot of money off that money that you make. And so that was a heck of a sentence. Yeah. I think I followed that.
Basically, what I'm saying is, when you listen to somebody on social media, a lot of people say, I made $20,000 this month, which sounds like a lot of money. But what they're talking about is their gross revenue, all the money that they brought in. And that's a big difference. There's a big difference between that gross revenue number and what they actually make, or what I would say is what you put in your pocket and you get to take home with you. And that's the important number, but it's not nearly as sexy.
Oh, totally. This is where, I ran into a little bit of a barbed wire fence a few weeks ago when I was talking about don't do the social media thing. I think it can be valuable to get together, especially in venues where you know who the other people are on the other side of the screen, right? So like some close Facebook groups and that sort of thing. But so often with the anonymous posting, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it out. Reddit is the worst at this. Facebook's pretty bad too, but Reddit is the worst at people going there to try to learn what it's going to be like as an owner operator. You have no idea. You're getting fed so much BS.
You are.
With all that stuff. And so, we see this in all realms of life, whether it's politics or economics or whatever, but trucking is no different. The clicks are with the sexy headlines. And so that's what people put out there, but that's not reality.
And to be able to catch those and understand those, you need to be educated. And that's really kind of one of the points of this podcast, is to help people become educated. And I'm going to use, I think throughout the course of this episode, quite a few analogies. And one that I really like, I'm kind of big into fitness and nutrition as well. You hear all the time that you can't outwork a bad diet,
yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter how much you work out. If your diet's bad, you can always overconsume the calories that you spend working out. And the same is 100% true with revenue in a business. You can bring in a super strong revenue, but I guarantee you every last one of us can outspend that revenue with our expenses. That's easy to do. That's the easy part.
Guilty occasionally, although hopefully not too often. Okay, so let's torture this analogy a little bit. There's exercise and then there's diet. What's our diet here? Is our diet the money management side of things?
Yeah.
Tracking your numbers, saving, etc. And the exercise is getting out on the road and put some miles on that truck. You do need both. One without the other isn't going to do as much as you want.
You do, but the success comes from managing the expense side, the less sexy side, right? The sexy side is the working out, the working, making the money, bringing in all those big dollars. But what actually determines your level of success is, how well you control all those expenses. You don't outspend the revenue that you're bringing in. And it's just like with a diet. Like if you're trying to slim down, the real true success in that comes from how you control, how you manage your nutrition.
Okay. All right. So with that said, what are some common mistakes or myths, or, however you want to tackle this with, you get into specifics. What do people do wrong when it comes to managing their diet in trucking?
They overspend in a lot of different areas. And one of the biggest ones that I see is, you see people all the time that bring in a month more money than they've ever seen in their life. You go from driving a truck and maybe bringing in $5,000 a month as a driver to all of a sudden bringing in $20,000 or even $30,000 a month. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm making all this money. And so then immediately, I've seen this so many times. This is really one of the biggest reasons I started this podcast, is because I see guys go out and buy their dream pickup truck. Like, it's only $1,000 payment and I'm bringing in $30,000 a month. I'll make that payment super easy and I can have my dream truck. But the problem is then you've saddled yourself to this expense that you don't really need to make your business successful.
Right.
And it can cripple you, because when times get bad and you need some extra money, you have to make that truck payment, and it saddles you, and it makes it so that you tend to make bad business decisions.
And it's, you said you're saddled with this debt. And Chris, I'm sure you've noticed the trend. Car loans aren't really 5 years anymore.
No.
Right? You're doing 7, 8 year. I've seen 10-year loans. Are you freaking kidding me? Anyway, so be careful out there with that sort of thing. You put an analogy in here in my notes, and it's I want to relate it to just the idea of the open road, the freedom of the open road, like you said, the glamour of getting out there and driving and all of that. The road is your new boss. You didn't trade. You traded one type of freedom, but you traded it for another type of employment. Self-employment is still employment, right? You don't get to now just do whatever you want. There's there's a formula, and you can personalize it and kind of deviate within it up to a certain extent, but you have to think of your business and that pavement out there as your boss, right? Am I right?
Absolutely. A boss does not go away. Your boss just changes. Your boss becomes, bringing in that revenue, controlling those expenses. Your boss is essentially kind of your bottom line, your profit and loss.
But that said, I think there is a certain element of, I don't know quite the right word. It's an amazing thing when you start your own business and you are determined to make it work. It's a little bit like, hey, let's do another analogy. Did you know that it's been statistically proven that men instantly become more productive workers once they have a kid? It just happens, right? Now you have this thing that you're responsible for, and so you treat your job accordingly. So you suddenly get better at your job, more productive at your job. You work harder, all those things. And starting a business, if you do it right with the right mindset and with the right preparation, it can be a little bit like that. You've got a new baby.
Absolutely.
And so we're talking like, oh man, it's going to be so hard out there. And that's true. So is being a parent. And the rewards are incredible if you are diligent and you keep going. You're prepared, you're diligent, you keep working through the good times and the bad the right way. Oh, what an amazing thing to have for yourself.
Yeah. So the bottom line of this whole section is just don't get caught up in like the gross big numbers that you hear people talk about. People are highlighting, one line item on their profit and loss statement, but that's like the tip of the iceberg. It does not tell the full story. Take that with a grain of salt whenever you hear that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. We've talked a little bit about certain personal expense mistakes that people can make, but you can do that in your business as well. Treating the cash machine like, hey, as long as I just invest back in my business, then that money will be productive. How am I going to invest? I know. I'll get that sexy long-nosed Pete, and I'm going to trick it out with the Christmas lights and the, whatever. I'm going to get the sweet new
everywhere.
chrome grill and all that. This would be a related, similar mistake that I bet you see all the time.
All the time. It's kind of one of those overrated things that drivers chase, getting either that brand new truck or buying their dream truck. You mentioned that flat-nosed Pete. Super cool trucks. I mean, it's kind of like the Harley Davidson in the trucking world. And you see people chrome them out, trick them out, and they look awesome. But if you're an over-the-road truck driver, that truck's going to get you 1 to 10 miles a gallon less, which is easy 20 to 40% more in fuel than a more traditional over-the-road aerodynamic truck. And that's going to kill you. And if you're hauling dirt and you're not putting on a whole lot of miles, a lot of your time's spent sitting, okay, you that kind of thing may not kill you. But if you're over the road and doing that, bad idea.
Now, Chris, when you started Haulin Assets, you bought a used truck and you ran that over the road for what, a couple years probably. It was with the business.
At least 2, maybe 3.
2 or 3 years. And then as you started accumulating trucks and drivers, you're up to 10 now. I noticed you bought a lot of new trucks. And tell me, did you feel like you fell into this trap, or was that a savvy business decision at that point as you were building a small fleet?
I think at that point when we're, especially when you're getting a fleet and you're trying to attract drivers, newer equipment becomes a more critical piece of that. It's not 100% you got to have it, but there is a trade-off, and I feel like for us that was the right time. It was good. I don't regret buying new trucks kind of that early on. I do regret buying as many as we did, as aggressively as we did. Yeah. Timing was bad for that, but actually buying new trucks, I think for what we were doing, what our goals were, it was the right thing.
So, okay, so what you're saying, the point of my question here is to tell people listening, it's not that new trucks are bad. That's not the point. The point is, why are you getting a new truck? Are you ready? Are you financially equipped to get a new truck? And what's the new truck that you're getting? Are you building a business, or are you building a lifestyle, or what's the word? Are you building a visual aesthetic?
And I'll put another twist on this a little bit. If I were an owner operator, and I'm talking me, one truck driving for myself, I don't think I would ever buy a brand new truck.
Oh, really? For a new business?
For any business.
Oh, okay.
If I'd been in the business for 20 years and I needed to get another truck, I don't think I'd buy a brand new one. I'd buy one that's probably a year or two old, which are a little bit harder to find, but you can find them. So still relatively low miles, but just like a pickup truck or your personal car driving off the lot, those things depreciate in value so much in the first year, it's not worth it. And if you're an owner operator that can do some of your own like minor repairs, you can fix air leaks, maybe even change out an airbag, plug a tire when it gets a leak, those kind of things, even more reason not to buy brand new. It's gonna, in the long run, probably save you more money. A good used truck is often going to be more profitable than a brand new truck specifically for owner operators.
Okay. So the overrated or mythical aspect that we're tackling here is what exactly? That hey, you're a new business operator and you're bringing in 30 grand a month, live it up. You're rich is the point. The myth is you're rich because you're bringing in 30 grand a month.
Yeah.
Right.
And don't go out and make big decisions like that early on in your business. If you've been running for a year or two and things have kind of smoothed out and you've got a good steady pace, then it might be time to start making some of those kind of decisions.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to another myth, Chris. Let me back up. I want to tee this one up a little bit. I went to a presentation. It was like a 2-hour keynote session with some guy who billed himself as like this billionaire entrepreneur, global jet setter, blah, 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 blah. He was a freaking snake oil salesman. I couldn't stand it. I won't get into the details or anything, but it was one of the worst talks I've ever sat through in my life. And one of the things he said, he was trying to convince this room full of leaders and entrepreneurs that it doesn't matter how hard you work. Okay, now that's my tee up for this. And I hated that because quite frankly, it does. And you're just starting your owner operator business. You're going to be working hard. Congratulations. Welcome to the business. This is the reality of it. But the myth, there's a point of diminishing returns with that sort of concept. And I wonder if the next myth that we want to talk about could be summed up as, you want to run hard up to a point. If you're running hard constantly, all the time, that's not going to help your business as much as you think it will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hard work is critical. I grew up, in my teenage years working on a farm, learned to work really hard, and the ability and the willingness to do that is definitely a key to success. But you know what trumps working harder just about every time?
Working smarter.
Working smarter. Getting the right routes, getting the right loads, controlling your expenses so you maybe don't have to run quite so hard. All that stuff is working smarter, which is the number one important thing, definitely more important than working just super hard. Because you can work, it's kind of like outrunning a diet. You can work super, super hard, but if you're not controlling your expenses on the back end, all that harder work do you know what it's making you do?
Poop more.
Lose more money. Yeah, poop more. You're just losing more money. It's not doing you any favors. If you're already in a losing, like if your rate per mile is such that you're losing money, harder work is just going to make you lose more money.
So I'll tell you another story. I had a mentor of mine. I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but the phrase that I was taught, or the principle that I was taught is good judgment comes from experience. Unfortunately, experience comes from bad judgment. And so I wanted to tie this in because when you say work smarter, not harder, it's like, well, gosh, what does that mean? I don't know how to work smarter. This is kind of what you're talking about with don't make those emotional decisions when you just started your company and you're seeing the big dollar signs. You still don't understand what those things mean. It takes that first year, 2 years, 5 years as a business owner to screw some things up, make some bad decisions, understand, a little bit more about yourself and your business and the freight market and whatever else. And so it's through those first years that you gain that experience. Unfortunately, sometimes it's through your own bad judgment. Hopefully you learn from other people's bad judgment. Listen to this show for the last 6 or 7 years. There are a few lessons you can learn that way. But does that make sense? Like, these things are intimately tied together. If you want to work smarter, then get out there and start your business and make a few mistakes. And I'll throw this one out there, Chris. Journal. Keep a personal and business journal with, it doesn't have to be long, but every day just sit down and what happened that day. What's a lesson that I learned from running over the road today, right? That would be super helpful if somebody wanted to actually learn some lessons in that first few years.
Absolutely. I'm a big note taker. And so I don't journal, but I take a lot of notes. I use Evernote, which is an app that syncs all my notes across all of my devices. And I'm religious about it. Like, I'll sometimes in the middle of a run, like as my brain's think about something, and I'll take the time, stop, jot it down on a note. And so you can have a notebook that's kind of specifically, this is my ideas or my thoughts, and you write those down as they come up, and then you read through that on a fairly regular basis to kind of refresh your memory. And great point, and a great habit to get into. All
right. So Chris, we've been going for 20-ish minutes now. We've got a few more myths to get through. So what do you say we lightning round some of these?
All right.
Myth number 1, Chris. You ready?
Yep.
This is going to get me canceled so freaking hard because somebody's going to clip this and put it on social media. Chris, only men can be truck drivers.
Yeah, that is.
I can't believe you just said that, Craig.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So with Haulin Assets, we've got more than the industry average in female drivers, which I absolutely love. They tend to have good attitudes, and they're some of our best drivers. And I've actually thought a lot about this. And do you know why I think they're some of our best drivers?
No, I don't.
Well, one, they don't do stupid things as often.
Chris, how dare you impugn men worldwide?
I guess I'm one of them. They don't take as many big risks. And two, I think if you're a woman in the trucking industry, like, you've got to naturally be a tough person.
Right.
Willing to do hard things, willing to do unconventional things. And the ladies that drive for us fit that mold perfectly. Like, they are tough, they are smart, they know what they're doing, they don't take risks, and they make really, really good drivers. I wish there were more women in the trucking industry.
Okay, well, there you go. Myth number 2, Chris, is that trucking doesn't really pay, right? Okay, so you could believe the social media stuff, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pull in 30 grand a month, I'm gonna be rich. You could believe that, or you could believe the doomsayers that say that truck drivers don't make good money. You're dooming yourself to a life of financial mediocrity at best, right? Okay, myth.
This absolute myth, and here's the you can make really good money in trucking, but it's like most other professions out there. Typically, the highest earners in a profession they're either get that way because of experience, which takes time, or they have just an amazing talent. And in trucking, I would say that's heavily weighted towards experience. Talent is definitely a piece of it, but experience more so. Whether you're a company driver that has more experience, making fewer mistakes, knows the ins and outs, can get loads to point A to point B with very little direction or help from somebody else, they make the company more money, which typically means they're going to earn more money. And so that level of experience is important for a company driver. And then as an owner operator, as you gain more experience, you're going to make more contacts, you're going to make fewer mistakes, you're going to learn how to control your costs better. All those things are going to add up to you making more money. You can make good money in the trucking industry, but is by no means a given. And
there's something else that you can do in here. You talked about just gaining the experience and the contacts and all of that, but like many other industries, okay, I've mentioned before, I work with a lot of dentists, and dentists tend to make a lot of money, right, most of the time. But if you want to make a crap ton of money as a dentist, you know what you do? Specialize, right? You get into oral surgery and periodontics and all this stuff where you can specialize to the point where now you're making oodles of cash. Truck drivers, it's an imperfect comparison, but there's something there where you can get into specialized loads and hazmat loads and things that are going to pay better because you're one of fewer people out on the road competing for those things.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And you typically can't get into specialized freight until you've got some experience. But
right.
Oversized loads and some of those big, more complicated hauls that you do, a lot of the time flatbed stuff it pays really well, because a lot of the times it takes either somebody who's willing to, tarp and bind and chain everything up, which is hard work, or it takes a certain amount of knowledge to know how to load some of those non-typical things that go on a flatbed or some other kind of oversized trailer.
Yep. Okay, Chris, myth number 3, truck drivers never see their families. Oh, what a heartbreaking thing. They're just never around, right?
And that happens in some situations, but usually it's for a reason. There's no reason that you can't find a good, work-life balance in trucking. Is it going to be different than somebody that goes to their own bed every night? Yeah, probably. There are trucking jobs where you can do that, but a lot of them don't. And so you have to find a workflow that works well for you and works well for your family, but you can find those.
There you go. All right, Chris, myth number 4, truck driving is a fallback career for the uneducated. Oh, it's just a bunch of dum-dums driving down the road, Chris.
This one bugs me as much or more just about any of the other ones, because there are some super smart truck drivers out there. And I think that myth gets perpetuated by just the general populace. Like if you've never sat behind the wheel of a truck for a long period of time, you have no idea the challenges that goes into driving a truck.
They shouldn't call it a cab. They should call it a cockpit.
Yeah, it really is. There is a lot going on all the time. It takes a skill to drive that truck down the road safe, to manage all the bumps in the road that come along the way, dealing with shippers, dealing with brokers.
Dealing with literal bumps in the road.
Literal bumps in the road. People that do stupid stuff on the road.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the social media post we just posted. It was either today or yesterday, but if you haven't gone and seen it, go look at the Haulin Assets Facebook page right around May 20th and watch what one of our drivers almost experienced a life-changing experience on the road.
Okay.
A person on the freeway in the middle of the night ran right out in front of him. Our driver missed him by inches. Like this, the video leaves me shaking, and I wasn't even the one in the truck.
Holy. Okay.
That's crazy.
That's be careful out there. All right, Chris. So much for our lightning round myths. I think we tackled those. So, you know what? No, I do have. I've got a couple more.
Okay.
I got a couple more for you. If you want to succeed, okay. So yeah, you'll see your family sometimes, but only once every few months. You take a week off. But you got to be out on the road constantly to succeed, right? This is the work harder, not smarter myth.
No, again, it's how you work. Like if you can, you develop the right relationships, you do the right things so that you work smarter, you don't get as tied to the truck. If you're not working smart, you're going to get tied to it. And then in a lot of situations, the only way that you can be successful is by working, being out on the road for super long periods of time. But if you build those relationships, you get the better paying freight. You can still make really good money without as much of the away from home time.
And then, Chris, here's maybe my favorite one of the entire bunch, because in my mind, the answer is maybe. And the myth is bigger fleets equals more success, right? More trucks, more dollars. To which I say, maybe.
It can.
It can. Let me take a crack at this one. And my response to that would be, are you a business owner who runs a trucking company, or are you a trucker who runs a business? There's a big difference between the two, and neither of them is better than the other. I want to stress that very highly. You can be really successful running your own one truck owner-operator operation, right? If you are the type of entrepreneurial, incredibly hard worker who's willing to go out and get some, business education and understand the ins and outs of management and accounting and all of that, yeah, you might be the type of person who can build that fleet, get a bunch of trucks, and see even greater financial success down the road. But that one person driving the one truck down the road, making a really nice living, also doesn't have as many freaking trucks and risks to worry about, right?
Absolutely. And that's where you have to determine what your level of success is. Success means wildly different things to different people. And that's where, if success to you is making, $75,000 a year, and not having a whole ton of worries on your plate, that's one level of success. If success is a net income of $1 million a year, that's completely different. So you've got to figure out what success looks like for you, what's going to make you and your family happy, and that's going to determine where you need to be, help you decide whether I need a big fleet or do I need just me and my truck, and that's going to get me my level of happiness that I want.
Okay. Chris, I think we've hit a lot of good myths. I'd like to hear some more. In fact, I think this could be a pretty fun one. So find the post for this episode on the Haulin Assets Facebook page, or jump in the comments section on YouTube or what have you, and let us know what you hear that either you're sad that you believed for so long, or that you're pissed off that so many people believe this thing, one way or the other. I'd love to hear some more of these.
Absolutely. I would too. I'm sure we missed some pretty good ones. So I'd love to hear what other people have to say. There's a lot of them out there. Well,
Chris, let's close out with the last few minutes. We're going to talk about April financials. We are recording this toward the end of May 2026. So the April numbers are in, and let's see how things did. So everybody hang in there, give us 5 more minutes, and we'll tell you what's going on with Haulin Assets. And as a reminder, for those who may be new to the show, you can find the profit and loss statements, all the details that we're going over, plus a lot more, at haulinassetsllc.com. So all of this is open and free to see. So you can pattern your own journey off of what Chris has been doing for the last 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years.
Okay, Chris. So April 2026 financials. Let's start with the total miles run for 10 trucks.
102,104 miles. So a little bit less than it has been.
That sounds okay for 10 trucks as an average. That sounds like kind of a basement number. That's the low. That's scraping the low of what you'd want to see.
It is, but also we had a driver quit, and we've decided most likely we're going to sell truck 2, which is the second truck. The second truck we bought used. It's almost got 1 million miles on it now. We just feel like it's the right time to take it out of the fleet. So it basically sat still the entire month.
Okay. All right. So at 102,000 miles, what was the total revenue?
$253,806.83.
Okay. And so that gives us an all-in rate per mile of
$249, which is kind of in the ballpark of where we've been the last couple of months. Last 3 months, we've been right in that same
It's not
area.
the $185 you were getting a year ago.
No, it's not.
We'll take it. All right. So with that, the net profit then comes to what?
$8,849.92. So also lower than it has been, really the rest of this year so far. It's still positive. It's definitely not the worst number we've ever seen, but it is a negative cash flow wise, which don't love, but luckily the last several months have been pretty good to us compared to the last 4 years. So we'll take it.
Yep. Okay. And if you're curious, it sounds weird to say we netted almost $9,000 and we're cash flow negative, meaning we gained money, but we lost money. Yeah. If you're curious about that, we're not going to get into it here. Go check out past episodes about accounting issues in trucking. You can just listen to lots of the financials episodes and we'll get into that issue in others. So, all right. So not the best month ever, but also, like you say, not as painful as we've seen in the past. So how are we doing on fuel, Chris? I'm curious about this because of, let's just call them worldwide issues. Fuel costs, I have to assume that's just murder.
It's been nuts, pure chaos the last couple of months. And I've got some numbers to kind of highlight that. So in February, so we're talking 2 months ago.
Right.
February, we were spending about 62 cents a mile in fuel. And I've lumped all the fuel together. So that includes DEF, that includes reefer, that includes the truck fuel. All of those comes out to 62 cents a mile in February. And right at the end of February is when the US attacked Iran and things just went crazy. So in March, we spent 82 cents a mile in fuel. So it went up 20 cents in 1 month. And then in April, we spent 91 cents a mile in fuel.
That's so like not a 40% increase.
It is. It's insane. Yeah. We spent essentially in April spent $30,000 roughly more in fuel in April than we did in February.
So, okay. So when we look at the totals then for the month and you say, hey, we brought in this month this much, right? What was it? 253 was the net the gross income, but then the net profit comes out to just under $9,000. And what you're saying is if fuel prices weren't doing what they are right now, then we'd have a pretty stellar month like we saw back in February.
We would have.
Okay. All right. Well, that sucks. Anything else you want to talk about as far as the numbers from April?
I just kind of want to tie the numbers kind of back into this episode, or we've talked about some of the myths and industry trends and some of that stuff in trucking. And I just want to highlight, like, our numbers are real. We're showing you the good and the bad. We always have, we always will.
If you subscribe on YouTube, you can see the ugly.
Yeah. Is that you or me?
Oh, well, I put the camera on me when I said that.
Okay, so. All right. Fair enough. And frankly, the last 4 years have been a lot of bad. It's been a challenging 4 years, the great freight recession, something different than we've ever seen before. We're coming out of it. Even with the chaos of fuel right now, we're still in a better spot today than we were 6 months or a year ago. And I think the fuel thing hopefully is going to be somewhat temporary. But that's the beauty of this podcast, is that we try to be completely transparent, completely honest, show the good and the bad.
Yep. Okay, Chris. Well, anything else you want to wrap up for this episode before we cut and run?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in, and thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget all of the links I said at the top of the show: HaulinAssetsLLC.com, MotorCarrierHQ.com, HaulinAssetsAcademy.com. I'll get there. And be sure to rate on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen. Much appreciated, everybody, and we will see you next time.
See you then.